So I'm going to be talking about something that I've been wanting to talk about for a very long time. It's very serious and like personal, but it definitely needs to be talked about more just because of how serious it is. I'm going to be sharing my anorexia story. It's been a really rough and long one, but I feel like I definitely have gotten somewhere in it. Even if not much, I have gotten somewhere because I'm still here. I'm still living, thriving, breathing. And I just want to share my story just from the beginning because everyone's story is different. And I've been watching a lot of these eating disorder stories, and everyone is just so individualized. And I'm not going to be putting any pictures or anything from when I was deep in my eating disorder, or just any pictures at all, because I know like they're not necessarily like promoting eating disorders, but like they can be triggering, and I don't want anyone to compare themselves to me or compare themselves to anyone else, because everybody's different, everybody is beautiful, and you don't have to be a certain weight to be valid. You don't have to be a certain weight to need treatment or to need help or to even prove that you have an eating disorder, because eating disorders don't discriminate. They come in all shapes and sizes. They come in anything. So just a disclaimer, I'm not going to be putting any pictures or anything graphic or anything from when I was deep in my ED. But yeah, I'm just going to start from the beginning. So basically my whole life, I've been pretty much a normal child. I did have really high anxiety though. All throughout elementary school, I had super severe separation anxiety from my parents. Like there was a point in like first grade where I literally could not get to school. Like my parents had to drag me to school. I was like screaming and crying, and like I had to go to the counselor's office every morning, and I'd just walk into class late and everyone would just kind of stare at me. But that was the thing, like I thought either I was gonna get sick, my parents were gonna get hurt, I was gonna get hurt. Like I just thought something awful was gonna happen if I wasn't with my parents 24/7. And I always had like some kind of anxiety with food. Like it wasn't necessarily like an eating disorder, but I was an extremely like picky eater. Like anytime my parents would go to a restaurant, like I'd be like screaming and crying because I did not want to go to that restaurant. Like I don't really have a specific reason for it. I was just like extremely picky, and I had certain things that I would eat, and like I would not branch out. Like no matter what, I would not eat anything but like the few things that I knew that I liked. And I was very rigid about that. And my parents would always tell me like, Faith, you could ruin a trip to Disneyland, because I literally could not go somewhere without having some kind of like tantrum or anxiety attack or something in that realm. But for the most part, like aside from that, I was a pretty normal kid. I had friends. I never really had issues with making friends, or I always made good grades in school. I played volleyball. I did a lot of extracurricular activities. Like I was a pretty normal kid. And then around like 5th or 6th grade, I started to kind of be more like aware of my body. Something I was extremely afraid of was like, which is kind of weird, I don't know, but I was extremely afraid of like puberty and like my body changing from that. I did not want my body to change at all. Like I did not want my weight to go up. Like even though I didn't really know what it meant, anytime I went to the doctor, I was super sensitive about like my weight going up, which like that's really sad coming from like a 5th grader, but it was my life at the time. And I specifically remember this one time in 5th grade, me and two of my good friends, we were talking about how like muscle weighs more than like other body components. And so my dad had us like weigh ourselves to see like who had more muscle or whatever, because like that would mean we weighed more. I don't really know, but I just remember I was like in the middle of the both of my friends, and I was like, oh nope, I have to be the lowest. And that was really the first time I ever had like bad thoughts about my weight. And I remember around this time, like I was really self-conscious about my legs specifically, which like now that's like not the biggest part of my eating disorder. Like what bothers me the most about my body. But that was the big thing for me back then, was like my legs. Like I wanted them to not touch. Like I wanted to have like a thigh gap. I wanted them to look smaller. And that was kind of through like 5th and 6th grade was that was kind of the stage for me. Like I never really did anything about it with food. Like I still enjoyed food a lot and I still ate normally. I just like I didn't really associate the two. I didn't really associate like the thoughts about my legs with like, oh, I need to eat less. Like I didn't really associate the two at the time. And there were a lot of times where I'd be like, oh, like I'm eating really like unhealthy. Like I'd have thoughts like that. I'm like, I need to start eating healthier. Like I need to eat healthier foods or like go on a diet or something. But I never really got serious about it. And then things started to get really bad around like 7th grade when like COVID hit and stuff. This was like 2020, like March, April 2020 was when my eating disorder really got really started for the most part. So when we were out of school for COVID, I was really isolated from everything. Like I loved to like go and do things. Like my thing was like I always wanted to be distracted. I wanted to be out of the house like doing fun things with my friends. And I wasn't really able to do that. And I guess that's where kind of like food came in. Like I would kind of just like eat a lot, and that's kind of what I did in my free time. And I kind of noticed that my weight started to go up. Like I started to feel like tighter in my clothes, and I was just not okay with that. Like I was absolutely freaking out because I was like, oh my god, like my body is changing. And this was in like the span of a few weeks, so like this really probably was unrealistic and wasn't even happening, but it's definitely was what I thought was going on. And basically it kind of started with like exercise. Like I felt like I needed to like exercise more because I didn't really want to like stop eating because I loved food. Like I really enjoyed it. And so I started to kind of try and like compensate with like exercising. Me and my friend like did this online workout thing. It was like a 30-day thing to get like shredded. And just like please don't do that. If you have like an unhealthy relationship with your body or food or anything, just like don't even don't. It's just not a good idea. Don't recommend. But that's kind of where it started. And I just remember me and my friend did it. Like she did it for a few days, but I decided I was going to keep going, obviously, because I was very adamant about changing my body and things like that. And once I finished that, I was just like, okay, like I need to keep going. And at this point, my parents were kind of just like, oh, like she's being healthy, like she's trying to like get a healthy lifestyle or whatever. Like no one was really concerned about it. I wasn't concerned about it, obviously, because I was just like, okay, like I'm just being healthier. Like I never ever like, even in my deepest, like I never thought I had an eating disorder. Like that was my thing. I never really accepted that I had a problem. I just thought I was being healthy. And I started to do things like going on walks like every day. Like I live on a golf course, and so I'd go like on this like 3-mile like loop in my neighborhood. And I just remember I had to do that every day. And then kind of like the food obsession started to kind of creep in. And I just remember I started to just not eat dinner anymore. Like my parents would cook a lot and I'd just be like, oh, like I'm not hungry. And I would just start to skip dinner. And honestly, the obsession with my body, like literally, I had to have gotten these standards from somewhere. Like I was not born feeling like I wasn't good enough. Like I was not born like feeling it like I need to look a certain way, my hair need to be a certain way, I need to be a certain weight, I need to wear certain clothes, I need to get certain grades. Like I was not born with this. This came from society, because no one is just born hating themselves. Like that's not a thing. Just I remember kind of social media was a really big thing for me. Social media really kind of flared my eating disorder. Like it really fueled it. Like seeing people that I thought were perfect had perfect bodies, that really made it a lot worse. But I was never really around friends or anything, so no one ever really noticed much except for my parents, which like they didn't even notice for the longest time because again, they just thought I was being healthy or like doing like healthy lifestyle things because I was bored in quarantine and I wanted to get my life together. I honestly don't really know. So I hid for a long time. I was isolating myself and I hid in this unhealthy mindset of just wanting to lose weight. And that's what I was obsessed with. That's all I cared about, was just like, I need to lose weight. I need to get skinny. I need to be as skinny as I possibly can be. I need to lose as much weight as I possibly can. And that's just what I was obsessed with. That's what I had to do. And so I just started cutting out more and more meals, and I was counting calories heavily, like absolutely obsessed with that. I had like a set number that I could not go over, or I would have to like exercise extra, which I was already doing every day. And my mom started to get kind of worried about my exercising because I was just like doing it all throughout the day, just like randomly in the house, which like that's not really normal. And so then I started to have to be secretive about it, and I would do it in my room at night when everyone was asleep because I didn't want anyone to know that I was exercising, because I didn't want anyone to be suspicious of anything. And my parents also started to get concerned about my eating. Like when I would go to my grandma's house and I would come home and my dad would comment how he already thought I was like skinnier or like lost weight from like the 2 days that he hadn't seen me. And like at that time it made me feel good. Like I was like, oh, like this is working. People are noticing that I'm getting skinnier and that I'm losing weight. And I was playing volleyball at the time, and after it had gotten really bad after a few months, I did not have the strength to basically do anything. I could not serve the ball over the net. And I just remember this one time my coach was trying to help me serve the ball over the net, and he was helping me get in the position to serve. And he like touched my shoulders to like help me. And I just remember he like flinched. He didn't really say anything, but later on my parents told me that he told them like he could like feel my shoulder bones and it really like scared him. And again, like at the time, like that felt good. I was like, oh, okay, like this is working. Like I'm losing weight, I'm getting skinnier, and people are noticing. Like that felt good to me. Like that was like euphoria to me. Like I was like, oh, okay, like need to keep going. Like that was basically how my brain was working, and kind of like a lot how it still works today. Like that feeling has never gone away, and I don't know if it ever will fully go away. But this was around July, and July was the first time I got admitted to inpatient treatment. And right before that, I went on this vacation to Puerto Rico, and I just remember this was the worst vacation I had been on in my whole life. It was so awful because I couldn't enjoy it. I couldn't like eat anything. Like we went to restaurants, and that was a big thing for me. I could not eat at restaurants, like absolutely not. Like that was an ED rule for me. I absolutely could not eat out. And I just remember I was basically just eating vegetables at every restaurant because I just couldn't like do it. And I was still freaking out over the vegetables because they had oil or butter or something on them. Just a quick disclaimer, like if you are watching this video and you do have an eating disorder, or you do have anorexia or bulimia or binge eating disorder, or just like literally any eating disorder out there, because there's so many different varieties, like you do not have to be afraid of the same things that I'm afraid of. And I'm not afraid of everything that other people with eating disorders are afraid of. Like there are so many different variations. Like everyone is affected in different ways. Everyone has different fears. And like some people, like a lot of people with eating disorders don't even have fear foods, or don't even have certain, just like anything. And so I just don't want anyone to compare my eating disorder behaviors or fears or anxieties with your own, because they're all valid. Anyways, I just had to get that out there. But this vacation was just awful. It was so bad. I was so like mentally and physically drained. Like I had no energy to do anything, and it was just awful. And I remember I got back and my mom was really worried about me. She took me to the doctor, and basically the doctor did some blood work, and she was like, okay, well, come back in 3 months, and if you lost any more weight, then we'll need to stop volleyball. And like when I think about that, like literally I would have like died. Like I would have died if I just kept doing that for 3 months and then came back to my doctor. And my mom knew that. She knew that I was not doing okay. And so she looked out for another doctor. And this doctor was like, okay, we need to get her admitted to inpatient. So that's what we did. I went to inpatient the first time in July 2020 for 12 days. And when I got out, I was doing better. Like I was eating my food and stuff, but like mentally, like the body image was just awful. And after that time, I kind of was just in and out of treatment for months. In January 2021, my parents kind of just withdrew me from the program because it wasn't doing anything. And things just started to get really bad again. I just had a relapse and it was pretty bad. I was just straight back into eating disorder habits, like basically everything I was doing before, and more, like worse goals for myself in the form of ED, like worse weight goals, worse calorie goals, like everything. It was just really bad. And my parents decided that I needed to go to residential treatment. And I was in residential for about 6 months, and this was probably the worst period of my life. Like, I was dying inside. Every day, I just dreaded getting out of bed. Like, I physically, like, could not do it. Like, I go back and I read my journal entries and that I had from residential, and I just sit there and cry because I hated myself so much. I had feeding tubes multiple times, and it was just the worst point in my life. I hated my body, I hated myself, I hated everything about my life. I just honestly didn't want to be there. I just wanted to be gone. I didn't want that life. And my mom got COVID, so she ended up just like taking me out of the program. And after that, I just had another relapse again. Like I fully relapsed and back into basically every single habit, every single eating disorder behavior again. And I was just completely obsessed with everything. Like I was completely obsessed with my body, my weight, calories, everything again. It's like I would go into treatment and basically just go through the motions and do what they wanted me to do, and then get out and just do everything all over again. Like it never really fixed anything. And I honestly, I feel like I'm just so resistant. Like there is nothing anybody can tell me to make me be okay with my body, which is just so sad because there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with anyone's body. But I had this pure hatred for everything about my body. And I did meet one of my best friends in treatment. Well, actually my best friend now. She's pretty much the only friend that has stuck with me through this, because all my other friends have pretty much ditched me because I've been gone for the past like 3 years. This eating disorder has taken like 3 years of my life from me. It's taken basically everything from me. I haven't played volleyball in 3 years. It's just taken everything I love. It's taken my family from when I would go to treatment, and still even when I'm out of treatment, I'm not really able to like enjoy time with my family. But after I got out of residential treatment, I just relapsed again, and I ended up having to go to the emergency room because because I was losing weight really, really fast, and my heart was not doing well. My heart rate was really low. It was in like the 40s. And I just remember the morning that I went to the emergency room, I had not eaten in like 3 or 4 days, and I literally could not get out of my bed because I physically couldn't move. I had no energy to move, and I couldn't focus. I couldn't really speak to anyone. Like, this was kind of back to like pre my first admission. I just remember my mom would tell me, she would say something to me, and I kind of sit there and stare at her for a few seconds and then respond, because I literally wasn't processing information that was like coming into my brain, because I was so like starved and I couldn't function. And I basically just went through the whole treatment process again. And through all of this, I never really went back to school. I had been out of school for like 2 grades, and I missed out on a lot of that. I really had no friends except for my one friend that stuck with me from residential treatment. And after this treatment stay, because I had to go to inpatient and went through all the steps again, I did end up going back to school for my sophomore year, which my sophomore year ends next week. And this will be the first grade that I've gone all the way through since 7th grade, which that's like a big deal for me because I haven't made it through a grade in so long. But after I got out of treatment, I still had this pure hatred for my body. I still was basically just starting to relapse again. And I just remember I'd be so scared to go to the doctor every week and have a weigh-in, because if I lost weight, I was just scared that I was possibly going to go back to treatment again. And I was so afraid of treatment because I didn't want them to make me gain weight. That was my whole thing, is I wanted to stay out of treatment just so I didn't have to gain weight, and so I didn't have to eat all the food they wanted me to eat. I was just so genuinely like afraid of that. And then my parents started to get really pushy on me. Like, my parents made it really, really, really hard, because they would pressure me and get mad at me and threaten treatment on me. And it just honestly made things worse. And I don't know if I'll ever really get over my eating disorder. Like, ever. Which, that's so hard to say, because I do really want to recover. And like, no matter how much I want to recover, like, the thoughts are still there. They're still prominent. They don't leave. I feel like I have to have this certain number of calories every day. Like, I can't go over it. And I feel like I have to exercise a certain amount, which, like, I got over my exercise addiction a while ago, which that's a big step for me. And basically all of sophomore year, I have just really been working on my relationship with food, and I do feel more positively about my body and about myself, but it's honestly just feels like a habit now. Like, I don't hate my body anymore, but the thing is I don't want that to change. Like, I don't want to hate myself like that ever again. And I'm scared that if I start eating more or gaining weight or something, then I'm gonna hate myself all over again, and then it's just gonna be a whole nother relapse, and that's just what I'm genuinely scared of. But sophomore year has been really hard because I haven't really had any friends to help me through anything, except for my one friend, which she does live kind of far from me, so it's been difficult. But my relationship with food is still healing. It's got a long way to go. I know I have a lot of work to do, but I'm gonna get there. I'm gonna get to a point where I have food freedom and I don't care about what I look like, and I don't associate eating with gaining weight or being fat or not looking a certain way. Like, I'm gonna get to the point where that's how I feel. I don't know when, but I will get there. And this will always be in the back of my head. This time in my life, I will never forget it. And I will always probably have thoughts in the back of my head like, oh, like, should I eat that? Like, is this bad for me? Is this gonna make me gain weight? Like, those types of thoughts I will probably always have just sitting in the back of my head, but I won't always have to listen to them. And that's just all I want in life, is just happiness. I just want to feel free and happy. And I will get there. And I'm filming this at 12 a.m. because I made this video in like November and I never edited it. And I'm deciding to just make a new one because I didn't like it. But I really hope that this helps in some way. I don't want anyone to compare my story to theirs because everyone's story is so different. I want anyone to feel free to comment for support. And all of you guys are so strong. Like, everyone, mental illnesses are just, they really are serious and they need to be taken seriously. And they're so difficult. They are so complex, and everyone that has a mental illness struggles differently. And I just want you guys to know that I'm always here for you. And no matter what, you are strong, you are beautiful, you are worth living. Never forget that.